Mark, are drug-herb interactions a concern?
Well, there's a good basis for at least initial concern about
Mm-hmm.
the potential for herb-drug interactions, because they
Okay.
do exist. Although I think after reviewing this subject for over 10 years, I think in many cases they may be overemphasized to the
Ah,
point beyond what is really a public health issue. Let me explain.
all right.
Initially, about 10 years ago or so, as the herb industry and the herbal acceptance in the culture got bigger and bigger, people in the pharmacy and medical community, and some of us even in the herbal community, started saying, okay, with all these
Mm-hmm.
people taking herbs,
Mm-hmm.
some surveys are showing that about a third of the adults